session available later on to people who are not able to attend. Feel free to interrupt with questions at any time. We're here to mostly to answer your questions. So my name is Julie Major. I am a senior faculty lecturer at the MAC campus. I'm the director of the McGill Panama Field Study semester. It's my first year doing that job. So we have some students in Panama right now. I'm going to show you pictures later. But yeah, that's my first cohort that's there right now. And we are lucky to have on campus downtown in the window on Zoom says Bianca. We have Bianca and Christy, who are alumni from the program. They completed it in winter 24. So they're here to share their perspective, their experience also with the program. And welcome, yeah, and welcome also to Eva, I think, right? Who's brave and in the room downtown. Good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start by kind of telling you about the what the experience is and what it's about. So I need to share my screen. Need to remember how the Zoom works. So let's do this. Is that coming up for people? Yeah, okay. So basically I'm just going to be using pictures to talk about the program. It has been running for this is the 26th year that the program is offered. I myself did the program when I was an undergrad at McGill. I was part of the second iteration of it in the year 2000. It did not run in 2017 because the exchange rate was really, really awful, and it didn't run during COVID, of course, but otherwise it has run every year since. So it's a lot of students that have come through the program. In Panama, we, from this very beginning, have collaborated with the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. The Smithsonian is the institution, for example, that owns, I think, the Museum of Natural History in New York City. It's a very renowned scientific institution, and they have a campus and presence and work in Panama, and it's with them that we work. It is a field semester, as the name implies. You will spend some time in the classroom, but that is not the majority of the majority of the days you will not be in the classroom. We do, do a bit of lecturing because it kind of serves as a basis for what we do in the field, but it's really about getting out there and working in the field, working in nature, working with people a lot. So all these pictures are from the folks that are currently in Panama. They're pictures from the first month of the program. You see here the students hearing from a gentleman who is wearing a Panama hat. It's one of the distinctive, one of the very Panamanian things. These hats, that's a Panama hat. Walking in the woods, you can see a bit what the transportation looks like. We're usually in a little bus like the one in the middle, sometimes in the back of pickup trucks as well when we go places where the bus cannot reach. We travel all over the country on most occasions of the program. Students take, let me just move. I'm gonna have to escape here for just a second. I just want to grab this, put it on my other screen. Thankfully, I can edit the recording. Okay. So was this my second slide? Okay, so you will take courses while you are in Panama. You will You might at first be a little bit intimidated when you see the titles of the course. They are listed online, the ones that will be offered in winter 26. One of them is still tentative because it is a new course. It's a course in communication. Excuse me. There is a course in biology that is offered every year. Next year, I will be teaching a course on sustainable agriculture. And next year, there will be the course on communication. And every year, we also offer a research course that is worth 6 credits. So everybody does a big research internship. And I'll talk more about that later. So this is students, and again, in the context of some courses, we see here speaking with a gentleman, I believe this is in Santa Fe, 2 students interviewing one of the residents. So when I say it's hands-on, it's field-based, yes, walking in the woods, observing, sampling natural elements, but also interviewing people and you know, thinking about aspects that are not related to natural science, definitely as well. The group is composed, there are 24 students in the group, including some Panamanian students, which is really fun. I just realized that I want to hear from you guys, Bianca and Christy. So maybe could you tell us about your experience, you know, completing the program alongside local students from Panama?
Yeah, well, so we had our cohort was made up of 18 McGill students and then also 4 students from Panama. So we all kind of lived in the same house, although they had well, other people, other connections in the city, so they weren't particularly all the time there, but we got to like make friendships that really like last till now. I personally, my internship, I did it, like my partner was Panamanian and we really got to see like, he was a biologist, so we got to see like both sides of academia, I would say, like a more Canadian perspective and then the Panamanian perspective as well. So that really mixes really beautifully. And it was really great to see our cohort and the Panamanian students as well, just interacting with each other and kind of like learning in the language, learning the culture, each other's cultures. So yeah, it really enriched the program a lot, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the like benefits of PFSS versus the other 2 field study semesters is that you get like a definite integration into your program. I also did my internship with Betty and she was Panamanian and we just got to learn so much about each other and our cultures and like things over dinner time. Like she taught me how to play dominoes, which is a very big thing in Panama. So also really open to practicing language because they're taking the semester to practice English. We're taking it to practice Spanish. So the conversations that come out are just so silly. But yeah, it's just 4 more Panamanian friends for the rest of your life. I mean, we still talk to each other on group chats and stuff today. So I think it's such a critical part of the program. Yeah, it's such an awesome thing to do.
Do you guys want to talk maybe about, accommodation, logistics, and whatnot? How would that look like?
So the PFSS program is now based in a hostel. It has been pretty much for a while, but we got moved to a new hostel. Our cohort year, so we were the first year. It's an awesome space. Basically, there's a bunch of rooms. Some are like smaller, some are bigger, but you basically have roommates, you bunk. You're moving around a lot anyway, so you don't spend that much time in the hostel, but it's in Panama City. It's in a beautiful location. It's like a couple streets away from like the Pacific Ocean. So like on our downtime, I would just go walk down like the boardwalk. And it's staffed by amazing people. We still talk to the hostel staff like today on our group chats as well, just because they were awesome. It's a very communal space. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, maybe you haven't lived with like 21 people before, as some of us or most of us. So at first it can seem like very overwhelming. Like, will you find your space, like space for yourself? And like, will you always be like willing to interact with each other? But I found it like really natural. I feel like the hostel was big enough so you could find like space for your own. But it was great to like fully immerse yourself in living like in community. And I feel like that was the overall feeling.
Yeah.
Of course, you go through like ups and downs, and there will be times where people just don't want to speak a lot, will go nonverbal, and will just like work on their own thing. But it's great because you really feel like you have each other and you can rely on each other. And that's the overall feel I feel like in the hostel.
And you guys cooked communally.
Oh, yeah, so we started group dinners, so I don't even make group dinners with my like roommates of 4, but somehow we managed to figure it out with 24 people. Sometimes we'd make dinners to the profs as well. So it just became really fun, you know, you can hang out together like during and after the program. There's hammocks, pool tables, some people would do yoga in the morning, go on runs. It's hot, but that really bonds you together.
Yeah.
And it's like basically I'd rather be hot in Panama than here during the winter storms. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's definitely just like a sense of being there all together. You're all going through the same thing, which is really important because not a lot of people can relate to what a field study semester is. So it's really awesome to have these people that you're like built in friendships with and living with, just all doing things together.
Yeah, I also feel like having a home base was really important for us. Of course, it's like a really hectic semester, so you're always like on the go. But like knowing that at the end of the day or at the end of the week, you're going back to the hostel and you're gonna be able to like get yourself, I don't know, clean and relaxed for the night, and just to be able to share that with each other, like really adds a little bit more of I guess comfort and like wanting to keep going. I feel like it's not too much to handle. I feel like it was a nice safety net.
I think you guys are kind of alluding to the intensity of the program, the courses and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. This is not your regular McGill semester at all, but it is so gratifying because of that. It is, so you take 3 courses that are like intensive, so you take 1 course at a time, which is really cool because you just get to focus your energy on learning about one topic. And the course kind of is structured around integrating kind of things you already know and things you're learning from your professors, and discussing a lot. I feel like it's not your regular classroom where you're just gonna sit and get talked to. It's you really kind of create the experience yourself. I think I can count the amount of lectures, like less than 10 lectures of just like sitting and looking at a screen or something like that. It's all very like on the go. Sometimes you have really long days. Sometimes you're working on weekends. It's all very like, it becomes your life.
Yeah.
But in a very, very awesome way.
Yeah. And like since we're all going through that, it's like you can really like, as I said, like rely on the whole group. And yeah, since you're doing everything together, it's like you become a unit, I would say. And yeah, and I cannot stress enough like the amount of conversations and the amount of value that was in these conversations. And those kind of shape what you're learning, I feel like. Yeah.
Yes.
Like you get a lot of knowledge from the professors and from like the environment, but I feel like what really solidifies it is just being able to talk about it with each other.
Yeah, and the people in Panama as well, like,
Yeah.
those become your professors as well, which is really awesome to think about, that you're just learning from people around you, which you wouldn't necessarily do at McGill or in Montreal.
Great. Okay, so I guess I'm going to share my screen again. And just to, I guess I'm making this a little bit of a show and tell, but we do camp sometimes, depending where we're going. The locations might not be able to accommodate us in rooms, so these are students camping. These are students hearing from community members in Gobe Bugle, indigenous people. So you can see the lovely work and dress of the women. They make these clothes by hand. I'm personally a huge fan of arts and crafts and textile work, and this is an applique technique. It's beautiful. It's very different from what other indigenous peoples wear in Panama, as well as in other places like Guatemala, for example, which is a lot more embroidery. So I just had to show the beautiful dress of the Ngove Bugle people. And yeah, so another picture here with an indigenous family. This is a nice dinner the students had at the end of one of the courses in the capital city. All sorts of experiences, visiting solar farm with the group. And this is an example of, the Bianca and Christy were talking about a lot of conversations, a lot of learning revolving around conversations within the group. And this is one such conversations at night. If we're staying in a hotel, we will have conversations sometimes right by the pool, which can be difficult because you might be tempted to just go swimming instead. But we would probably give you some time to go swimming before and after the conversation, if at all possible. So that's all I had prepared in terms of pictures. Maybe I can talk a little bit more about how the credits kind of work out. So it's 15 credits. You're there for the entire semester, January to mid-April. You take three credit courses, which are intensive. So you spend the McGill prof goes to Panama, spends 2 weeks there, and you do the 3 credits in 2 weeks. So those happen, this year this year they're happening one after the other. And that leaves 6 credits for the research course, research internship, which is ENVR 451. It was different when Christy and Bianca did it. It was more like people doing independent internships with organizations throughout the country. What we're experimenting with this year is that all students are working on the same overarching project, which is to prepare a watershed management plan for the Rio Santa Maria. So this is a river that washes out into the Pacific Ocean, and the government of Panama has some really big plans for that the area where the river goes out into the ocean. They are thinking of building a new commercial port there. So the students are working on basically well, first of all, assessing and analyzing the reality of the watershed right from the headwater up in the mountains. Is Santa Fe in Gobe Bugle community, guys? I've never been there.
No.
It's not. Have you
No.
been in Santa Fe?
Yeah, it's kind of on the Campesinos, it's kind of on the outside, so it's like the stop before you go
Into the comarca. Okay, so it's more like campesinos. So, people of mixed descent that are not uh, indigenous per se. So right from there all the way to the mouth, and we have and it's still different groups, like groups of 2 or 3 students are working with different organizations. They're working on themes like history, so documenting the history of the area, things like opportunity costs for all sorts of productive activities like shrimp farming, coffee production, sugarcane growing, cattle raising. We have a team looking at biodiversity, mostly amphibians. We have a team looking at governance. We have a team looking at water quality. So all these people are working with local experts, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a really big importance on sharing and we have students working on mapping as well. So they're going to be mapping a lot of the findings of the other groups. But the common goal is to prepare that watershed management plan. That's super ambitious. Okay, this is actually something we're actually going to present to the government of Panama. They can do whatever they want with it because they are they take care of themselves and they make their own decisions. But we're hoping to provide something that will be useful to them with that big project that they have, and we're hoping to hopefully do something a little bit similar next year to build on what the students did this year. Do you guys want to talk, Christine, Bianca, a little bit more about your internship experience? Because, some aspects of it are similar to what we're doing this year.
Yeah, for me, we had like an impact assessment sort of internship, and it was done in the area that Julie was talking about, so La Bahía de Parita. And I worked at an architect studio, and that was led by one of our professors there, Ariel, and Andreina as well. She was like my direct supervisor. And it's just really great to see like what they're doing with the whole watershed now, because I worked directly with Andreina, and she is so passionate about this place, and she wanted to see like our project kind of scale up. And it's like this really complex, like ecologically complex area where like migration birds like come like once a year, and they're like endangered. And then but it is also like not a very wealthy place, so people need like economic activities to support themselves, and they might not be the most like sustainable environmentally. So it's like a really complex area, and like a lot of fields, I guess. And so I'm just really excited to see what people are gonna come up with. And yeah, I guess I'm really hopeful. What you've been talking about, Julie, is just like, wow, like a lot. That's really exciting.
Yeah. My internship was completely unrelated to this project, but that's okay. It was a partnership with a NGO called Pro Ecuasuero. So I was just completely on the other side of Panama in the peninsula, on the Pacific coast. And ProEco is a NGO that works primarily on basically saving the rainforest, the dry tropical rainforest in Asuero, which isn't usually talked about because it's not like the thing you'd picture when you think about tropical rainforest, like trees, moisture, rain, none of that. It is very, very dry in the summer, which is the season I did it. I'm a biology major, so there was a couple of like biology specific projects for the internship. My team looked at soil and vertebrate diversity in different land uses in Asuero because they're having a really big problem with teak plantations. Basically, historically, the government has been sponsoring farmers to convert their land into teak pastures, which is doing really bad things for the soil and biodiversity in the area. But the NGO basically just didn't have people to be able to go and like prove that was happening. So that's where our team of just basically free researchers come in. And we also partnered in my internship. This doesn't happen with all of them, but there was Panamanian interns as well, which is really awesome. So I have like 3 friends outside of the program who we also met in Panama, which is pretty cool. And I still talk to like Josue and all of them today. And we are presenting, me and Sarah, the other McGill student, are presenting our research at the undergrad science showcase at the end of March. I don't know if I let Julie know that, but so yeah, you get to do more things with your research. We created like a 45-page document. There's so many graphs, so much data was collected. So it's like, it's real science, if science is your thing, or real economic research, or whatever your niche is, you'll probably find a really good internship for it here. And that's a really good stepping stone to put on your CV to be able to get more experience, because experience is so hard to get nowadays. But yeah, so that was my internship.
I feel like opening the floor up for questions. Anything you guys want to ask about, be it, funding, costs, you name it, academics, whatever. Um, Feel free to just unmute yourself, or Yura, you have a question, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how to fully word this, but I was just thinking about well, obviously there's like Panamanian students there and all of that, but just thinking about this being like McGill, a big institution coming in and doing outside research and like obviously like all these ideas like the watershed, like that sounds amazing, like the type of research that can be used is awesome, but just thinking, I guess, about like the efficacy and how like the communities there actually feel about this research being done. I just am like wanting to know a bit about that and how that goes about it because it's like, yeah, like us being like, oh, we're doing all this research and then being like, oh, this is us and giving it to the government, like more about the ethical side, I guess.
Very good question. Actually, the projects we have students work on always are determined by local people on the ground. So local, researchers, local organizations, they are the ones who define the questions and who define the methods, basically. So, it's really the way it's defined really comes from local people, not, us McGill people saying, oh, we're going to study this in that context, because I agree with
Yeah.
you, that
Hmm.
is very likely bound to failure or, lack of actual efficacy or
Yeah, like
yeah.
respect for, yeah, the environment.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Okay, that
Do you
helps.
have anything to add to that,
Yeah,
Bianca and Christy?
say that's the exact perspective you want coming into PFSS, in that there's so many conversations that we have about positionality and what it means to be like a institution from Canada coming in to a space like Panama. Like I myself, like I'm from Ecuador, so I kind of got like that sense of like what exactly we're doing here. And I think it's because we have that perspective when we come in, is that we don't make those mistakes. And everything that we do in the internship is decided by the place that we're going to. We're essentially, we show up and we're like, hey, we have these skills, what do you want us to do with them? It's not like, we want to research this because we think it'd be cool. Like, we're there to help, basically.
Yeah. I think this brings me back to what I was saying before, like a lot of knowledge, I guess, solidifies in conversations. But I had to mention as well that a lot of these conversations stem from uncomfortable positions that we've kind of grappled with, like as a group. And a lot of them are also linked to positionality. So I would say I wouldn't say you stop thinking about like your position in this semester, and it's something that really comes up a lot during the semester, and sometimes it puts you in an uncomfortable position. But I feel like what you get from it is that like is this awareness, and you can only start like changing or being like critical about it if you acknowledge it first. So I feel like this is what we did a lot in our conversations, not because it was pushed, but because each of us like understood it. And yeah, I would say it's one of probably the most difficult conversations that we've had throughout the semester, at least in our cohort. But yeah, but I feel like once you're aware of it, and as Christy said, like, and if especially if you go into this having this in mind, you're gonna be able to have your actions kind of go in a different direction, I would say.
Yeah. Asking the question and thinking about that doesn't mean you'll necessarily, I mean, you're not your actions and your everything's not perfect, but that definitely is the best possible context for the best possible outcome, I think. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm curious to hear more about the background of most students who go on the field study, because I know I come from cognitive science, so it's definitely a different, I know that most people probably come from biological or environmental sciences, but do you ever have people from different fields?
Actually, the biggest pool of participants is from the Faculty of Arts. So we really welcome students from every program at McGill. Political science, engineering, yes, more biological science, environment, but international development as well. Really, we have students from any possible background, and we touch upon any possible background in the material of the courses and the program as well. So it's really about getting yourself outside your comfort zone, given the context, right? You're moving to a different culture. You're trying to be agile and operational and effective and useful in a different cultural context, but also thinking about, things that potentially you never really thought about in your whole career at McGill. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I did a presentation about PFSS, so I did a little project where I just counted how many majors were in our cohort. It was upwards of 14, like different branches, Faculty of Arts, Faculty of Science. So I would say, yeah, exactly what Julie said, that you bring a unique perspective. Like, don't let that deter you, because it's so important. I think so many of the lessons I learned were shaped by the fact that people in my cohort had different backgrounds. A lot of environment kids, a lot of bio kids, but like my roommate, history and psychology. Chemistry was our other roommate as well. So just completely different backgrounds, and those like are so important to the like success of the program, I think. So don't count yourself out because you're like, oh, I'm not an environment major, because that's the exact opposite of what we want to happen.
There's a question in the chat from Thomas. He asks, has the funding situation changed from last year? Are there any new opportunities for McGill students? I remember last year McGill had cut most funding opportunities. I'm not aware of such a huge change, Thomas, in the funding opportunities. There might be some funds that everybody was getting that were not. Well, actually, yeah, there are many years, students do get like an across the board, everybody gets a sum of money to offset the program costs. That did not happen at least with the current cohort, which I'm more knowledgeable about. We're hoping we can reinstate that next year. We are working on diversifying the way in which we can help students offset the program costs, with some new initiatives, for example, trying to attract donations from alumni. That's something that we started working on last fall. Christy helped us with that as well. That was great. But otherwise, it really depends on which faculty you are from. So again, on the MPFSS webpage, you do see like kind of by faculty what opportunities exist. Of course, these might change in time. And sadly for Max students, we don't really have anything that's faculty specific. Other faculties do, like, for example, the Department of Biology has some monies that they can give out. I think there's funding for art students as well. One thing that does apply to everybody, every McGill student, is what we call the EEO. It stands for Enhanced Educational Opportunities. That is need-based funding. So if you can demonstrate to the Office of Student Financial Scholarships and Student aid. That's probably not how it's called, but anyway, the office that deals with like scholarships and whatnot, they will require financial information from your parents, for example. It's a bit like the process for qualifying for loans and bursaries from the government. But if you can show them financial need, they're able to be really quite generous with covering your program cost, but as well as your airfare, for example, or expenses, your food while you are in Panama. So definitely for students who have a financial need, I think we're well equipped for supporting them. And then for others that might not qualify for that, right now it is faculty specific, and hopefully there's more coming on the line. We're really working and trying to be creative about that. Did you guys have more experience, Christy and Bianca, here, what you heard or what you experienced?
I think that's the only one that I'm aware of and that I think that the office has access to right now.
Mm-hmm. Thomas is asking about the start date. I don't know the start date exactly, but it's quite similar to the start date of the term on campus. So it's usually the first week of January. We won't start. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Because it has happened that we've started pretty early in January, but I don't think, I mean, it won't be the second because that's a bit rough, but it could be, 3, 4, 5. This year it was the 7th that we started. And then we go until middle of April, and you also have a week off, kind of like reading week on campus, but in Panama it coincides with Carnival Week because it's just, a major mayhem countrywide parties, and we wouldn't really get any work done anyway during that week. So that's your week off when you're on the program. Yeah, Yura, go ahead.
Sorry, I have another question. I'm like
Go
thinking of a
ahead.
lot. I know that like Spanish is obviously like a principle, like the language of this program. And I personally don't know Spanish, but like I didn't know about like for applying if I if it's okay if I like get into the fall semester Spanish class. Like that's
Absolutely.
acceptable.
Yep,
Okay.
it is. Yep. The it
And
would
then
it would have to be, ideally the intensive 6 credit one, right? Which gets you to an intermediate level. If you're starting from zero, um,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, but then like getting into that class, I just like know my friends have tried to get into Spanish classes before at McGill and like couldn't because it was so hard. But like I
Mhm.
was wondering like if I get into the program, then that could help me for registering to make sure that I could actually get the credit because then I know that would be a whole problem. I
Yeah.
was just wondering going through that.
So, I might beat myself when I post a recording online, but if you need a spot in the class, probably going to be able to get it for you.
Okay. But
Yeah.
it would have to be the intensified version,
It's
so
it's
it's
it's HISP 218, so it's 6 credits in one semester.
oh okay.
Yeah.
So it's like
So
more time class
yeah,
or
it's I believe it's 1 hour, 4 days a week. I believe, but you can if you look up HISP 218
yeah, I'll
on
look it up.
Minerva, you should be able to find it. But ideally, you're if you could even just as a spot space keeper, just register for it as soon as registration opens in May, right? Just try.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Of course.
the farther, if you're U2 or U3, you get to register before others, But if you're stuck and you don't have a spot, I was able to get one for a student for last fall.
Okay, but I could alternatively also try to do like a outside of McGill
Correct.
Spanish
We don't
class.
we don't require that you take the actual credit, at McGill. That's nice because you really kind of have to commit because it's a class you're registered for. It's in your schedule. It's on campus,
Hmm.
but it could take other forms as well.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Do you want to say anything about the Spanish, Bianca and Christy? Oh, sorry, guys. Just sorry to interrupt. I'm just saying that Karina's saying that she's in that class right now. It's 1.5 hours per day, Monday to Thursday. So it is 4 days a week, and it's not an hour. It's 1.5. Thanks, Karina, for that. So yeah, intensive.
Bianca and I are both native Spanish speakers, so the program was a little bit easier on that side for us. But yeah, if you can demonstrate in some capacity that you have that intermediate level of Spanish,
Or you're going to get it.
you get it. I think some people did high school, like AP level Spanish, situational Spanish, like Bianca and I, but just, it's worth it. Trust me, I saw incredible improvement of some people that just took like the McGill Spanish class. They went from basically like really like, struggling a little at the beginning to having fluent, in-depth conversations by the end. Some people that I thought like definitely studied Spanish for multiple years had only done it for a semester.
Yeah.
When they were in, and just they learned so much in Panama because you're not thrown in the deep end, but like it really helps for you to pick up the language.
Yeah. Especially if you're like actively seeking like to improve it while you're like that's where you really see it.
Like it's gonna give you such an important skill, like having the second language or maybe even third. Montreal, if you speak French, that'll help a lot. But yeah, so I know some of my friends that just learn Spanish and now can speak Spanish, which is awesome.
Great, thanks. Maxime Olivier, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was wondering, like for the Spanish, if we don't planning, we're not planning on taking the class, when would be the exam to test our level?
So we don't actually test you. So when you're applying, you will prepare a letter of intent where one of the expectations is that you discuss your Spanish ability and your plan to improve your ability. It has happened in the past that we did interviews with students. We didn't do that for at least for the last cohort, but we don't require a certain like formal level, standardized level or exam or anything.
Okay, so I don't need a diploma or
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really competency is what we're after.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Michaela.
Um, yeah, okay, so sorry, I didn't know about the Spanish thing. So I just wanted to ask two things. One is about that. So can we learn the Spanish anywhere? Like as long as we have an intent of being somewhat competent by the
Yeah,
time
I
we
mean,
go?
you could do Duolingo. I mean, I say that, and then again, if you're kind of doing a thing really purely on your own, you need a lot of motivation because we all know that when the semester gets rolling, there's a lot of demands on your time and energy, and it can be really hard to do something that's just extra. So if you're starting from zero, we'd probably want you to commit to something more than just Duolingo, for example. But you could take a course, like a community, at a community center, for example.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Like if I'm not here over the summer, something I could do something back home.
correct. Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yep,
okay,
yep.
perfect. And then the other thing was, I know it was discussed that it's like three courses that were 3 credits. You take them one at a time. The only thing that I'm sort of worried about is like, are you stressing about academics? Like, I don't want to be there and worrying about like grades and not enjoying the experience. Like, I understand that you're learning stuff, so you are going through like a classroom experience, but I just wanted to wonder if that's like all consuming or if it's just sort of a part of it, you know?
You guys want to share your experience? We have the experts.
I've like never felt more at like peace with academics than I did during PFSS. Like you're still doing work and you're still learning, but you're learning in a very different way. Like especially like for our history course, I think our professor really understood that or tried really like pushed onto us that the grades were not the important thing. Like that's not what you want to get out of PFSS. You don't want to walk out of PFSS and be like, oh yeah, I got like this grade on an assignment. You're really learning from the experience. So there are assignments and things like that, but it's just like a means to an end. Like I won't lie, like there were nights that we were like working through the night to get an assignment done, but it was again like a means to an end. It's not the anxiety that I felt at McGill over a midterm because there's no exams. It's all project-based, group projects specifically. But I think all the professors like really understand that that is like not the important thing about a field study semester. Grades are not, like you do not.
Well, I mean, yeah, I really get your point, Christy, but the reality is that everybody gets really good grades because everybody works so hard, because everybody is so invested and engaged in the learning. And it's, it's not exams, as you were saying, it's a lot of group projects. So, it's kind of an environment where it's very intense. Everybody works very hard and everybody does well.
Yeah. Um, it was, for example, very similar to another field class that I was in before. And what I found was that like while you're in the field, you have to be doing the work and you have to be learning. So once you present something or you turn something in, it's just you proving that you've learned what you've learned on the field. And since you're there like with your peers and with your professors, they kind of are like witnesses that you have learned. And yeah, like assignments are fair in that way, I would say.
And did you guys feel like, because you are with your professors essentially, like you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, do you feel that that helped be maybe more confident about what was expected of you, or have more opportunities to ask questions, or feel good about where you were at? Does that resonate?
Yeah, also each course has a TA, which is kind of your first sounding board. If you ever have a question about an assignment, I would just kind of go out into the living room, kind of find my TA and be like, hey, Martine, like, what's this about? And then obviously the profs are right there. So if you have a question about kind of like the expectations of the course or like what a particular day is supposed to be about, it's just really easy to ask about it. I don't think there was ever a time where it was like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing
Yeah, exactly.
here. We keep field journals, which is kind of the biggest, I don't know, like tangible thing I think
Assessment, yeah.
in terms of yeah, grades or deliverables, and you're gonna want to keep that anyway. It's kind of like a diary but academic. So you kind of have a record of what you've done the entire time. And those are really helpful for doing any other sort of assignment.
Yeah. I feel like being in contact with your profs and with your TAs just really gives you an idea of what the purpose of each assignment is and what you should be focusing on. So that makes it like much easier, I would say.
Any other questions?
So I was just wondering, you talked about like the internships you guys did, and it was 3 courses, and then you kind of like went all over the country. So how was that? Did you go by yourself? Was it like groups every time for all the internships? Like, I was kind of wondering how that worked in terms of like the cohort.
Yeah. So for the internship, it's like after you've done all the courses, you have 1 month in which you all split up and you will be either paired or made up in groups of 3. And yeah, for our group, and I think for yours too, it was like kind of already organized by the organization, so we just had to show up wherever like we were cited, and then but that was, I feel like, our experience. Like some others, like the internships are really, or for us, they were really different among each other. So some people really had to solve like their transportation or
Mhm.
where they were staying at. Yeah, so it really varied. But I don't know what's it like now.
Well, we are figuring out housing for everybody, like where we're actually working on that right now. So yeah, I mean, myself as director of the program, I would want to make sure that I know where everybody will be staying. In part because those are costs that are covered by the program, right? So I mean, during the internship, I have to pay housing like in a bunch of different places based on where people are going to be. And we also cover your transportation costs if you need to, you know, to move around to reach your internship location.
But nobody's alone is
Okay.
is the
Yeah.
really important part. And it's usually like a good mix of people. Like, I don't know if that'll happen next year, but I feel like for our year, they did a pretty good like job of trying to keep like a consistent level of Spanish. Like I was paired with somebody who had just started learning, so it was kind of like evening out skill level, so you're not like two like very non-native speakers just thrown into like a new part of the country. So it works out. Yeah. And there was a lot of like switches that happened even
Yeah.
like a week before the internship. So you really work as a team to make sure that everyone's in the right place.
Mhm. Yep, and the internship course also has a TA. So at least the way we're running it this year, there's two instructors, one McGill prof and Ariel, who's well, he's an adjunct at McGill, but he's mostly based in Panama. And there's two instructors and a TA, and they're at least the McGill prof Nico Kosoy and the TA, they're going to be shuttling around visiting students, like, you know, pretty much all the time, just moving from one place to the next where the students are going to be located.
And I just had a second question. So for the credits, like if we're not in an environment or like field study, like major and minor, can there be like accommodations to try to like, because I didn't look what credits are available for which programs. I'm an international development major, so I'm assuming I could fit some credits in there, but does it have to be like does all of it has to be electives? Like how does it work for that?
So, sorry, what's your
Louise.
name? Louise. Beautiful name. I would have named my daughter Luisa if I had had a daughter, which did not happen. Anyway, sorry. Um, it really depends on your program. For IDS specifically, I believe I should check about that, but I believe on the actual web page of the program, we have the wording of what the courses can, so they can count in a certain section of your program, okay, because they're clearly, you know, related to international development studies. Otherwise, whether you're able to use the courses, you know, substitute the courses as complementary in your program, maybe even required, that is really a conversation you have to have with your academic advisor. I know I'm an academic advisor myself at McGill, and my faculty, which is at the Mac campus, we really try hard to accommodate students. So we would hate to be in a situation. I mean, we're never in a situation where we tell a student, "Gee, sorry, you're not going to be able to go on the field semester because you're missing this one required course, and you're going to have to stay here and take it." We do not do that. You know, we find even if it's a required course, even if it's a capstone course in your program, we will find an accommodation. But ultimately, you know, this has to be worked out and approved by your own academic advisor. I'm always available if you know, any student or any advisor has questions. We can provide syllabi, we can, you know, explain to try to help with that process of making things fit in student programs. As you mentioned, Louise, there's the field study minor, which can be interesting. Students in the Faculty of Science can also get a field study designation. Does that ring a bell, Christy?
A global designation.
Global designation, right. So, you know, when you graduate, your degree can be like awarded, if you will, a global designation if you participated in one of McGill's field study semesters.
Thank you. They're great.
So I have a question in the chat. For wildlife bio students, can we make some of our courses count as complementary courses? So we'd have to talk about that one-on-one, Karina. You know, that's specific to your own program. But that's definitely a conversation that we could have. Any other questions for now?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
It was just, I guess, a broad question about like, well, I'm an agriculture student and I kind of like felt an interest most to like this field semester because I feel like there was most lenience in like working and like learning within agriculture. So I was just wondering about like since if we're gonna keep the structure with the internship being like one unison, like is there still a sector within the internships that can be more agricultural based than like I heard like grazing and stuff, but I don't know. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure.
I think there probably always will be, Yura. I mean, honestly, the course I teach is about sustainable agriculture, and
Yeah, I was excited about that. I was like, ooh.
and I notice that a lot of profs, even like the geography prof, the history prof, teach in contexts, in rural contexts with communities, families, people that are involved in farming, because a lot of people are involved in subsistence farming in countries like Panama. So I feel like even if in a year where my course is not taught, you will touch upon agriculture for sure, from the environmental aspect, from the livelihood aspect, from the food security aspect, for example. And in the internship, we've pretty much always had internship topics that touched upon it. I think the year of Bianca and Christy, there was a group that focused specifically on food security. Well, I know there was. This year, we do have students, yes, focusing on, cattle, shrimp farming, sugarcane production. So I think it's such an important part of the landscape and livelihoods in Panama that it's not really escapable. Not that you'd want to escape it, but I think it's going to be there. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I never realized, like, I guess I didn't focus that much on agriculture in my major until I got to Panama. But even in our history course, when we stayed with an indigenous community, we did projects over the weekend, and my project was working with the Indigenous Organic Farming Association that was a part of that community, and looking at problems like pests and insect blights. And how they manage that on their farms. So during a history course, I was doing a lot of agriculture work. So I don't know, what about you, Bianca?
Yeah, I feel like for me, it was mostly like the sustainable agriculture course. But yeah, it was a lot of insight into I guess food security as well. But yeah, but I remember a lot their project in the Comarca and how much leverage it had, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
My pleasure. So I would invite anybody who has any other questions not to hesitate. If you get in touch with me or Miriam, who's the person behind the kind of resource account we call it. So if you click on to send an email from the program's website, it'll go to Miriam. She's super, responsive and on the ball, and will, forward your message as needed. Don't hesitate. If you want to get in touch with Christy and Bianca, get in touch with us. We'll put you in touch with them. Applications are currently open for the 2026 offer. They are probably going to be closing mid-May, so there's still some time. But yeah, we encourage you to talk about this program if you can, because word of mouth is definitely an important way for the message to get out. So I really want to thank Bianca and Christy for sharing their experiences with us. I think that is super valuable. And yeah, I wish
Sorry,
everybody a good evening. Yeah, go ahead.
can I just ask you a super quick question about the applications?
Yeah.
Are they on the website? Because it just says applications are open for 2024. And
I'm going
is it
to
the same link?
check. Yes, it's going to be the same link.
Okay,
But
lovely. Thank you
I'll
so
check.
much.
I'll check to make sure that a reference to 2024 is not
Okay, I might just be looking at the wrong one, like it's possible. But anyways, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure. Okay, So, good evening, everybody, and good luck with the rest of term.
Thank you.
Bye, bye, Bianca and Christy. Thanks for helping out.